privileged to bring into the conversation now Woody Johnson, the businessman, owner of the New York Jets NFL team, and crucially, the former US ambassador to the UK during Donald Trump's first term and also a donor to Mr. Trump. Thank you very much for joining us, Ambassador Johnson. First things first, Donald Trump, is he good news for the UK?
I think he's good news for the world and for America. That's for sure.
And in terms of the relationship with the
UK? The last 30 days, it give you a good indication of what's to come.
And in terms of that specific relationship, we often hear it referred to as the special relationship, which you'd have heard countless times. Do you think he has an affection for the UK? Because he often speaks about his mother, who, of course, was Scottish.
Yeah, and the Hebrides Islands. Yes, I think he does have a natural affection for the UK.
How much of a tool in the armoury do you think are the royal family in all of this, Ambassador Johnson? Because we know, I think you met the president when he went to go and visit Buckingham Palace and meet the late Queen. That's clearly a sort of trump card that Keir Starmer could deploy.
You're absolutely right. I think that was the high point of his first presidency, was meeting her and spending time with her. She had a great sense of humor. She understood Trump, he felt, but I think she understood all world leaders. But Trump felt a special relationship with her, that's for sure.
And do you imagine that he will be keen to return to meet the king in this case?
I think he will. I think he absolutely will. Particularly if you lay out the red carpet like you did last time. I think he'd really enjoy that again.
Let's talk about Keir Starmer, because whilst they're both red politically, the Red Labour Party in the UK don't necessarily respond the same as the Republicans over in the United States. Some of Sir Keir Starmer's top team, take David Lammy, have made pretty disobliging comments about President Trump. Will he remember that?
100%.
And what will his view be?
He would remember that comment. And if you know Trump, I've known him for 40 years. He has an elephant's memory. And particularly for comments like that, he will remember everything. But that doesn't mean he won't forgive.
Okay.
He can change. No, he can do that. And he has done it often, but he will not forget.
Of course, we saw in the case of J.D. Vance, for example, who made disobliging comments about the president and is now very much in the fold. In terms of if Keir Starmer had called you up, Ambassador Johnson, and said, how on earth do I deal with Donald Trump? I mean, how should he deal with the president? Because we saw Emmanuel Macron travel over to Washington on Monday. Do you think Keir Starmer can take a leaf out of his book?
Yes, I think he can. I would agree with Trump on every, pretty much all the issues that are important to the president right now. And to the extent that the UK can help.
Do you think,
whether it's Ukraine or whether it's in trade or, the Green New Deal, which you guys are unfortunately suffering from, in my opinion, and probably his too, because he's drill, baby, drill. And the key to prosperity is having plenty of cheap energy.
Yeah,
but that doesn't mean you can't put it together.
Well, Keir Starmer's saying build, baby, build, not quite drill, baby, drill, but he's using some of the language. Talk to me about the president's relationship with Nigel Farage, because I'm not sure. I know obviously you know about the UK system, you know about UK politics. How do you view, for example, Reform and Nigel Farage?
I think Nigel Farage plays a part in the whole political British dialogue and represents a point of view challenging the status quo. And I think the president that's right up his alley, because he thinks the status quo is certainly a way to go downhill fast. So from that standpoint, I think he takes, he looks at him as somebody that is a positive for the whole equation.
And you think he would perhaps like to see him as Prime Minister?
Oh, he hasn't gone there as far as I know.
Okay.
That's up to you guys.
Yeah, it very much is, although election's a long way away.
Yes.
Another thing that is frequently spoken about, and again, this was very much during your term when you were ambassador, is this idea of a trade deal. Now, we know Mr. Trump is famous for the art of the deal, as he likes to say. Do you think there is any scope there for Keir Starmer to talk about a sort of trade deal with the United States? Because, of course, we're very worried over here about tariffs.
Right, right. Well, Europe should be worried at this point, I would think. Uh, yeah, I mean, I would start. I was working on a trade deal with Liz Truss and others for several years, and it always comes down to agriculture. So what I would start with food, whether it's chlorinated chicken or whatever your regulations are to not import American agriculture, because I don't think unless something changes with agriculture, you're not going to get a deal.
That's interesting. In terms of the relationship that President Trump has with the UK as well, we know he has that sort of the view of the royal family, for example, and he loves the pomp and ceremony of the UK. But would that make us immune to tariffs in any way? Is there any sort of wiggle room, do you think?
You know, perhaps there is. We've got a lot of. I think we have more troops over in your country than you do, but we have at least 10,000 airmen and women there, plus, plus, plus. So we're a big part of the scene there. And so I think the special relationship does count for something. But he's got 4 years. He's got 2 years to make things happen. As you've noticed from the first 30 days, he's moving extremely fast. And when you're moving this fast, I think, the people that help him, he'll remember, and that help him accomplish the objectives, which are laudable in my opinion, are going to be viewed positively. And the opposite is also true, I think.
Trump too, because you knew Trump 1, but he's had 4 years where he was out of office and he was sitting on the sidelines watching how Joe Biden did. Many of those people who were around President Trump first time around, take for instance John Bolton, who's frequently on the UK media, are no longer there. There's a worry among some that this is President Trump without any safeguards. I mean, how do you think his second term will pan out? Because as you said, he's moving pretty quickly.
Well, first of all, he didn't take 4 years off. He worked every day with rallies. I mean, I've never seen anybody work harder than he has. What you'll notice, I think, if you look at his cabinet, his close advisors this time, much higher quality, much more loyal to Trump, understand he's had a chance to think clearly about what his objectives are. So he's gaining, his popularity has gone up, which never happens in a second term like this. His popularity is going up. People love what he's doing with Doge. I don't know if you understand what that is,
I
but
do.
really,
The Department of Government Efficiency, there are some in the UK,
yeah.
Nigel Farage being one of them, saying we should adopt similar. I mean, you've spent your whole life in business, of course, apart from when you were ambassador here, Mr. Johnson. Do you think that Doge is the right approach, or does it risk alienating a lot of federal employees?
I don't think he's worried about federal employees. He's worried about the population, the populist vote that he got. He won the popular vote. And I think when you can say that 95% of the public employees didn't go to work when he was elected, and all those expensive office buildings around the country were unoccupied, the public says, gee, I have to go to work. Why aren't these guys? So the public understands what's going on. And he said, like, if I were an employee, a federal employee, and I didn't have to go to the job, my handicap would go down dramatically.
You
in
spoke.
golf.
Yes, I thought that's what you meant. You spoke. I mean, speaking of being a potential handicap, I mean, the people who are around President Trump, you say that they are perhaps more loyal to the president this time around, but some of the comments that Elon Musk has made about British politics, for example, have caused a lot of controversy here. Could he prove to be more of a burden than an asset, Elon Musk?
Well, nobody can predict the future, but I think he's the biggest asset right now, one of the biggest assets that the president has, because he's able to, with his incredible insight, I mean, he's wildly successful in almost everything he's done. Everything he's done. And he can see things and clarify the deep state, the Treasury, The fact that trillions of dollars worth of checks were sent out with nobody saying no. They were just mailed out or sent out. And he's uncovered some very interesting waste, fraud, and abuse issues that I think have attracted a lot of public interest. And yeah, why am I paying such high taxes and these guys are getting off with murder?
I see what you mean. In terms of, I mean, people would disagree with that, but I understand what you say.
Of course.
In terms of the future of NATO, Donald Trump said just a few hours ago, NATO, you can forget about that. I mean, are we in danger of the US walking away from NATO, abandoning its commitments on defence?
I think what he wants is a shared commitment. He wants proof of a shared commitment, not having, spending 2% of GDP on equipment that doesn't work, like old planes that are sitting in hangars and counting that as he believes that the U.S. is spending a lot and we have our jets actually do work and that Europe has a responsibility to itself. It doesn't have the advantage of an ocean and it has to pay its way. And that's not unreasonable. And so why should the American people pay for the defense of Europe after 7 years or so? Although NATO is a very, very important concept. So I don't think there's a total danger, but there's going to be a great awakening, I would suspect.
One other comment that has irritated many over here is Donald Trump's view that the US should be compensated before Ukraine. I mean, in this particular conflict with regard to Ukraine, I mean, he's just not right about that, is he, Mr. Johnson? Surely Ukraine deserve to be getting compensation far before America. They're at war.
I don't think it's before or after, but America's put money into this war that really is more of it affects you more than it does us. And he just wants, he wants to get some of his money back that we gave. And Ukraine, there's a lot of talk about a government that needed total reform, but the Ukraine government there were a lot of waste, fraud, and abuse there before the war. That's for sure. And so we don't even know where this money, a lot of it's gone, and you don't either.
Well, I'm sure the same could be said for Russia. In terms of President Trump's comments about Zelenskyy being a dictator, I mean, again, that's not true, is it?
I think you have to look at it in the context of what he's trying to do, and he's trying to end the war. And so you have to look both at ending the war, and you also have to surmise that there's an end game at some point. There's something else that the president's going for. Then I don't know exactly, go into that right now, but it's a game of chess and it's a game of negotiation, and it's unfortunately involving the deaths of thousands of young Russians and Ukrainians, which he wants to put an immediate end to.
Is there a problem, though, with using language like that and excluding Ukraine when they were meeting in Riyadh, for example, with Russian diplomats, the delegation from the US government? I mean, is there not a worry that Ukraine will simply have no say in this deal and that it won't benefit them in any way?
No, I wouldn't worry about that at all. This is between the US and Russia. That's really, those are the two players.
Well, Ukraine you'd agree Ukraine's a major player.
Yeah, but I think but the deal makers are those two. It's the US and Russia.
Who are going to get things moving.
They've been having this thing. How long has the war been going? 3 years now with no progress. It's getting worse and worse and worse every day. So the president's been in for 30 days. And you've got Zelensky's coming into town on Friday. He's going to sign an agreement, and hopefully we can put the stop to this bloodshed, needless bloodshed.
Just to take you back to the UK, last couple of things. When you were ambassador, Jeremy Corbyn was the leader of the Labour Party and was very disobliging. Indeed, members of his shadow cabinet were very disobliging about President Trump. Do you think that there will be a better dynamic between Keir Starmer and President Trump? Because they have got on in the past.
I met Keir Starmer when I was ambassador. Yeah, I think there's a possibility. Yeah, for sure, compared to Jeremy Corbyn.
And lastly, as a sportsman, sort of hesitate to ask you for a prediction, but how do you imagine the talks are going to go down? Because there's a lot riding on this, particularly in the UK. Do you think it will be a success? I'm talking about Trump
I
and
certainly
Starmer.
hope so. I certainly hope so. I think if you can agree with President Trump, as I've laid out a little bit, and if he perceives that you can help him in the mission, this particular mission of ending this war, then it could end up being a good meeting.
Pleasure to speak with you. Thank you very much for your time. Ambassador Woody Johnson is a businessman, owner of the New York Jets, the NFL team, a former US ambassador to the UK, and a major donor to President Trump during his election campaign.